Tonight, the Aussie government planning to ban the sale of petrol-fuelled cars. But with almost no charging stations and electric cars still at sky-high prices, are we really ready for it? Petrol's out, electric's in, at least in the ACT. In an Aussie first, the Territory today announcing it'll ban sales on all new fossil fuel vehicles from 2035.
It sounds bizarre. Why would they do that?
Long overdue, and probably could happen sooner.
But phasing out the gas guzzlers will begin almost immediately, with the Territory aiming for 9 out of 10 car sales to be electric in just 8 years.
That would be 42,000 electric vehicles on their roads, and I think last year they sold about 850. I think it's ambitious.
Transport is responsible for 17% of our fossil fuel emissions. So in order to hit our climate targets, petrol's in the firing line. And the ACT is not going it alone. Victoria and New South Wales committing to around half of all new cars going electric by 2030. Queensland aiming to be fully electric by 2036.
The maintenance and the running cost is lower.
Encouraging hybrids, maybe more first.
Sure, yeah, I'd go get a Tesla any day.
Despite that, we're still lagging behind the rest of the world. Countries like the UK, Germany and Norway phasing out the production of fossil fuel-reliant engines altogether. Norway on track for 80% of all new cars this year to be fossil fuel-free.
Well, Norway really threw everything at the EV project, and they made it very easy to buy an EV, and we haven't offered the incentives. Basically, we've just pretended that what's happening in the rest of the world isn't happening here and stuck our heads in the sand.
But the transition ain't going to be easy. Firstly, even the cheapest electric cars are expensive.
Electric cars start now at about $48,000, but the one that everyone wants, a Tesla Model 3, is closer to $60,000.
We're going to have to see a big reduction in the cost of these things.
And secondly, infrastructure like charging stations has a long way to go.
The charging infrastructure in Australia is an absolute joke at the moment. The biggest charging network, ChargeFox, you turn up to some of their chargers and they don't work.
So with so far to go in the electric car transition, is it too soon to be talking about banning petrol?
2035, I'm ready to move on electric car in 13 years.
I can't see it happening. I could be wrong.
I guess if you're going to do this, Canberra's a place to do it because you've got a whole bunch of public servants who are well paid and they can afford to buy electric cars, and it's a small place, so you don't have to drive big distances. But if you then want to go around the rest of New South Wales, it's a problem. But we don't have the infrastructure to do this.
Charging stations.
So every apartment block in Canberra that would have, 50, 60, 70 apartments in it, they've got nowhere to charge an electric car. So I know it's 12 years away, 13 years away, and things might change between now and then. Price of electric cars will definitely come down.
But what were you saying today about the charging points, that they're not for every single make of electric car?
Well, Tesla's charging points are only available to be used with Tesla cars. So if you're in a Hyundai, for example, which has the Ioniq, and you turn up at a Tesla charging point, you can't charge your car. You've got to find an independent charging station.
The Tesla are like the Apple of the car world.
Yes. Yeah. And they've even started charging for their connectors extra from when you buy the car, so that makes it even more difficult. Look, Canberra, I guess they think they're doing the right thing. They're like a little Norway that can do it. We just need to put a ring around Canberra. It gives us another reason not to go there, really.
It's an interesting idea, though, to heavily tax the petrol cars for Norway and to not tax the electric cars to keep them competitive.
But in the end, doesn't that just make petrol cars more expensive rather than electric cars cheaper?
Cheaper, well, so, yes.
You're right, though, that electric cars will come down because if all these countries are doing that, car manufacturers will stop making them because they won't have as many places to sell them, and then they become more expensive. So surely the question, Steve, is given that transition's going to happen no matter what we do, we have to build the infrastructure.
And that's going to cost billions and billions and billions, and no government has been prepared to do it. We don't have an electricity grid where if everyone goes home at night at 6 o'clock and plugs their car into charge, we don't have the electricity.
Does it have to become a federal issue?
Oh, it has to be a national issue, yeah. And then we haven't started talking about road transport and B-doubles and trucks that move all of the stuff that we eat.